The 2020 draft for the Utah Jazz was definitely an interesting one, initially swapping the 23rd pick with the Knicks for the 27th and 38th picks. That was only the beginning of the Jazz's trades throughout the night, and over the course of the night the Jazz made two trades. After drafting Udoka Azubuike, 7-foot center from the University of Kansas, the Jazz saw Azubuike as a fit replacement for Tony Bradley, who was the Jazz's backup center behind Rudy Gobert. With this in mind, they traded Tony Bradley and the 38th pick to the Pistons. This was a largely economic move as the Jazz eliminated Tony Bradley's 4-year, $8.5 million salary and replaced it with Azubuike's rookie salary, which is much more economically sustainable. In this video, we're going to break down why the Jazz drafted Udoka Azubuike and how it affects the team as a whole. So without further ado, welcome to The Huddle. Udoka Azubuike is an absolute physical masterpiece with elite size. Standing at 7 feet tall, weighing in at 270 pounds, and having a massive 7'7" wingspan, he not only has great size, but he knows how to use it. Azubuike set an NBA Combine record with the highest recorded standing vertical by a center at 37 inches. With his physical presence in the post, many times he can affect shots without even touching them. However, Udoka is no slacker when blocking the ball, averaging 2.58 blocks per game in 2020-2021. He is also 9th on Kansas basketball's list of the highest amount of blocks in a season, with 80 in 2020-2021, in which Kansas's season was cut short by COVID-19. Per 40 minutes, Udoka averaged 4.4 blocks in 2020-2021. With his defensive prowess, Udoka Azubuike not only locks down the rim but locks down the lane, averaging 2.8 fouls per game, which is a great stat to have as an interior defender, especially in NBA games where free throws can be the deciding factor in a game. Udoka Azubuike will be able to better fill the role that Tony Bradley struggled to fill as a lockdown interior defender. He also will be filling that role even more so since Tony Bradley is now gone. He will presumptively be, unless we sign a new center, the second man right behind Rudy Gobert. Many Jazz fans are asking why we drafted Udoka Azubuike, and the truth is there's a number of reasons. Quinn Snyder is a heavily defensive-based coach, and he said he's been able in past years to establish a culture around defense, and that culture kind of went away because in past years we've been in the top few teams defensively, but then we kind of backed off and ended up at 12 for the last year in the league defensively. So what he's attempting to do here is basically get somebody who's not like Tony Bradley, because Tony Bradley fouled a lot. He was kind of inconsistent inside of the lane at defending. He wanted somebody just like Azubuike, who has a massive wingspan, who has a similar skill set to Rudy Gobert. But Rudy Gobert's offensive game may be a little bit more NBA-like. Udoka does have some really good offensive prowess because he's able to catch balls down low. He's able to catch lobs, all that kind of good stuff. But the big thing is that in previous years, Tony Bradley has barely gotten any playing time. I mean, just a little bit spotty stuff. And a lot of the time he was in the G League. What we're going to see with Udoka Azubuike is he's probably going to be playing 16 to 18 minutes behind Rudy Gobert, because their goal is they essentially want to know that for all 48 minutes of the game, they're going to be able to run that defense where they absolutely lock down the post. Because in the post, you have the rim, and the rim is the holy grail of basketball. If you can get to the rim, you are in a much better position than you are if you're always shooting from outside. And one of the big things today is step back jumpers from outside, but they don't have as good of a chance of going in as easy buckets at the rim. So if we can deny those easy buckets, numbers have shown teams who defend the post are much more likely to win than teams who only defend outside. And if we can pick up in free agency a defending wing, a small forward, power forward, or a power forward center type player who can switch off between the two positions to give Azubuike and Gobert relievers, then we're going to be able to really defend both sides of the ball on defense. We're really going to be able to get all of those 3-point shots contested, and we're going to have the lane absolutely locked down all the time. So the big thing with Udoka Azubuike was being able to just have the security of all 48 minutes. We're going to be able to run one of the two centers, and they both have the same skill set almost. One of them, and I mean, if we look at the stats, Utah runs more pick and roll plays than any other team. We have more handoffs than any other team. We are extremely post based, and that's even how we create our threes. So we see those swing passes all the time from inside, and it's shifty moves. And those moves where we basically bring everybody in, we're trying to get everybody inside of the paint, guarding those centers, and then the other guys can swing the ball out and get 3-point shots. I mean, that's why we saw Utah as the best 3-point shooting league, or 3-point shooting team in the league by percentage last year. I think that this is a great pick. I really think that the Jazz did a great job on this one. But we're going to have to see what he does. But I think that this really solidifies that Rudy Gobert is going to be staying with the Jazz. They would have made a different pick if they wanted to keep him, and they wouldn't have traded Tony Bradley. Because honestly, Tony Bradley had one of his better seasons in Utah, his best season actually, by far probably. But I think that it's a good pick. I've seen Udoka Azubuike live. He's outrageously good. He affects the game in so many ways, but there are some weaknesses that he has, and sometimes he can be a shaky passer, especially when people get all up in his face. And I mean, there's other things, but with the Jazz's development staff, I would not be surprised to see him improve vastly from what we saw at Kansas, because he came almost like he'd only been in high school a few years before he came to Kansas. It was crazy. I mean, he's got a motor. The Jazz are going to bring that out of him to the fullest. I think we're going to see a player who's ready to improve. He knows what he brings to the table. He can block, he can dunk, he can catch lobs. You'll see some. And I mean, in these highlight clips, we can really see some of his strengths playing out. That elite size, his length and strength, it really helps him. You can see it. And you can see that he's really a good offensive rebounder. He's going to come out of plays with the ball on both sides of the floor, which is huge for the Jazz, because sometimes we get behind on rebounds. Not very often, but when we do, it happens. We can see that he obviously has potential, and we can see that motor working. It's not always showing, but it is there. And a big thing is that open jump hook. That right-handed jump hook is very important for big men because they're going to be down low. They're going to be guarded tight. It's always how NBA defenses work. They're going to be on the big man, most of them at least. But we can also see some weaknesses. Doesn't have as much feel for the game as a lot of other people. And when he passes the ball, that can get kind of nerve-wracking for him, and he can make mistakes. But that's something that I think that the Jazz, their development staff is going to get on. They're going to help him out with that. I think that he's very raw offensively, not amazing with footwork. It's going to take him a little while to get everything good. He doesn't really have finesse at all, and his left hand isn't there. But again, I mean, those are things that'll develop. We have to remember, the last time we drafted a center around this time in the draft, I think it was the 27th pick that we drafted Rudy Gobert with, we essentially got the same kind of guy. Not much finesse. He had a little bit of finesse when he came into the league, but he went straight to the G League. I think we're going to see Azubuike really feed off of Gobert and, learn from him. We've seen it with a lot of other players. That's what a lot of teams try to do. I think that Gobert is going to be he needs to be a very good teammate to Azubuike, and I know that Jazz management knows that sometimes he can be a little bit off in the locker room. I think that with Azubuike in there, he's going to try his best to be a good role model and teach him as much stuff about the game as he possibly can. I think that their offensive games are both developing as we speak. I mean, we can see, if anybody's been checking Instagram, we can see that Rudy Gobert has been nailing threes in pickup games. I am completely ready to see him at least attempt 1 3 this year. And if he makes it, so be it. If not, then that's all right. But anyway, I think that Azubuike is an incredible pick. And don't get me wrong, I think that it could be a hit or miss thing. He is not as polished as a lot of other guys that we've drafted in the past, but he has so much upside that I think that this was the right pick for them to make. Of course, there were other guys on the board, but I think that really this motor that we can develop, and his offensive skills we can also develop, his defensive skills are still developing. He's got everything that the Jazz need to keep running this offense, and whatever we do in free agency, Utah is not a free agent destination, so don't expect very much. But if we can get at least one good guy to fill that small forward or power forward role to back up Bojan Bogdanovic and Georges Niang, he will have a much easier path of getting into our lineup, and I think that Azubuike is going to be a pretty good player for the Jazz, even if we don't see it right away. With that, everybody, this has been The Huddle. Please do subscribe. We would really appreciate it. Even though we're just starting out, we're trying to make as much content as possible for you guys. And let me know in the comments, what do you think Udoka Azubuike is going to do with the Jazz? Do you think he's going to do well or not so much? Let us know. Thank you so much for tuning in, and this has been The Huddle.